Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Study Byte. In this video we are going to discuss about K-Medoids algorithm. In the previous video we have discussed about partitioning clustering. Now let us have a quick review about partitioning clustering. Partitioning clustering is nothing but the process of dividing the data points into partitions or groups or clusters. In partitioning clustering we have two main algorithms, those are K-means algorithm and K-Medoids algorithm. In previous video we have discussed about K-means algorithm and also a problem on K-means algorithm. In K-means algorithm we use Euclidean distance formula, whereas in K-Medoids algorithm we use Manhattan distance. I don't know how to pronounce it. This is the distance formula that we use in K-Medoids algorithm. Now let's start our video. Let us know what is meant by K-Medoids. K-Medoids is a clustering algorithm where each cluster is represented by a medoid, not mean. Understood? Now let us discuss a problem on K-Medoids. This is the data points that we have in our problem. We have 10 data points here, and in K-Medoids the first step is to select data points. Here from this data points we are selecting two data points and we will be making them as medoids. The selected clusters are this and this. Clear? And in the step 2 we will be calculating the distance between the cluster 1 and cluster 2 for that new data point. Understood? The distance formula we use is Manhattan distance formula. That is nothing but this formula. Okay? Mod of x1 minus x2 plus mod of y1 minus y2. Understand? First we need to find the distance from cluster 1 to all data points, and let us note down the values in the new table. Understood? This is the table. Here we should write the values of cluster 1 and here we should write the values of cluster 2. Understood? So first let us calculate the distance from the cluster 1 to the first data point, that is 2, 6 to 3, 4. Then we will be getting 3. So let us note down the value here. For 2, 6 we will be getting 3 for cluster 1. Understood? Similarly for this next data point 3, 4 to 3, 4. Here the distance from that data point to the same data point will always be 0. Okay? And the third data point is 3, 8 to 3, 4. Now let us calculate this. Modulus of x1 minus x2 plus modulus of y1 minus y2, right? Similarly, modulus of 3 minus 3 plus modulus of 8 minus 4. Similarly, the second data point, that 4, 7 to 3, 4. Understood? Similarly, we should do for the other data points also. Similarly, by calculating the distance value from all data points to cluster 1, we will be getting these values, and similarly we should do for cluster 2, which means we should calculate the distance formula from cluster 2 to all data points. Understood? After calculating the distance between cluster 2 and all the data points, we will be getting these values. Understood? And from these two values, we should calculate for which cluster the data point belongs to. The cluster with less value is considered as a cluster for the data points, right? That rule works for K-Medoids also. Here in cluster 1 and cluster 2, cluster 1 have small values, so this data point belongs to cluster 1. And similarly, here 0 is the less value, here is C1, here also we will be getting C1. Here cluster 2 have the small value, so we will be considering this data point into cluster 2. And this cluster 2, cluster 2, cluster 2, cluster 2, cluster 2. Understood? This is how we classify clusters. And after finding clusters, we need to find the total cost of the cluster. Understood? As of now, these are the clusters that we have got, right? And after this, we need to find the total cost. Now, in the step 3, we will be calculate total cost. Okay, and from these clusters remember the main cluster. Here 3, 4 is the main cluster and here 7, 4 is main cluster. Clear? And the total cost is also calculated by the same distance formula, that is x1 minus x2 plus y1 minus y2. Okay, now Let us see how we can calculate the total cost. Here, first we should find 2, 6 to 3, 4 plus we should find the total cost from the main cluster to all the data points present in that cluster. Understood? Here, next 3, 4 to 3, 8. 3, 4 to 3, 8 and 3, 4 to 4, 7. And also we should write 3, 4 to 3, 4. Similarly, we should also add the second cluster values from this cluster to all the other data points present in cluster 2. Understood? 6, 2 to 7, 4. Understood? This is how we should write the total cost, and after writing we should use this formula to calculate the total cost. Here x1, y1, x2, y2. Understood? Likewise, this is applied for other also, and by calculating we will be getting, this is what we will be getting after substituting the values in the distance. After calculating all these things we will be getting this. Here if we add them we will be getting 20. Understood? Up to here clear? Let's have a recap to get better understanding. First of all, we have taken 2 medoids from the data points that we are having, and after taking that 2 medoids, we have calculated the distance from cluster 1 to all the data points and from cluster 2 to all the data points, and we have noted down in a table, and we have categorized the data points into clusters by considering the less value. Understood? And after categorizing the new data points, we have written them like this, and after writing them we have remembered the main clusters, and from that we have calculated the distance from that cluster to all the remaining data points present in cluster 1. Similarly, from that cluster to all the data points present in cluster 2, and by that again using the distance formula we have calculated the values and we have got the answer as 20. And keep 20 aside at about 7, 4 for some time, and take another cluster from these data points. Understood? Let us take 7, 3. Okay, and here this is cluster 1, this is cluster 2, and think of 7, 3 like O cluster. Okay, here we have taken new cluster, that is 7, 3, and using 7, 3 first write the table. This is the table. We have not at all changed anything in cluster 1. We have only replaced the cluster 2 with O, that is 7, 3. Understood? So that write the same values for cluster 1. Now our job is to calculate the distance from 7, 3 O cluster to all the new points, new data points. Understood? We will be using the same distance formula here from 2, 6 to 7, 3, right? These are the values. Substituting the values in the distance formula, we will be getting 5 plus 3, 8, which is 8. Understood? Similarly for 3, 4 to 7, 3. Similarly, by calculating the distance for other new data points, we will be getting this. And by checking that which has less value, and by checking which cluster have less value, that data point belong to that cluster. We know this rule, right? And here 3 and 8. Here 3 is lesser value, so that 2, 6 belongs to cluster 1. Here similarly cluster 1, and here cluster 1, here cluster 1. This is how we have classified the data points into clusters. And these are the cluster values. In cluster values we have C1, 2, 6, 3, 4, 3, 8, 4, 7, and in O cluster we have these values. Understood? Now, like we have calculated total cost in cluster 1 and cluster 2, here also we should calculate the total cost. Remember the main medoids. 3, 4 is the main medoid in this cluster, and 7, 3 is the main medoid. Now we should calculate the total cost from 3, 4 to all new data points and 7, 3 to all new data points, and we should add them. Understood? Here after finding the total cost value is 22. The current total cost is 22, which means replacing C1 with O is 22, and the previous total cost, which means the total cost of C1 and C2 is 20. By subtracting current total cost with previous total cost, we will be getting 2, and 2 is greater than 0, right? So swapping of C2 with O is not a good idea. And this is about K-Medoids. Let's have a recap so that you guys will clearly understand the problem. First of all, we have taken 10 data points, and from that 10 data points, we have selected 2 medoids and named them as cluster 1 and cluster 2. After naming them, we have found the distance between cluster 1 and to the remaining data points, and similarly we have found the distance from cluster 2 to all the new data points. Clear? And after finding, we have categorized the data points into clusters, and after categorizing we have found the total cost, and after that step we have replaced cluster 2 with another cluster O, and that O is selected from that data points other than the 2 medoids. And after selecting the O cluster, we have repeated the above step, like we have calculated distances from cluster 2 to all the data points, right? Similarly, we have calculated the distance from O cluster to all the new data points, and after we have got these 2 clusters, and after getting these 2 clusters, we have found the total cost, and this is our current total cost, and we also have a previous total cost, and we have subtracted those 2 total cost, and we have got 2 as answer. Here 2 is greater than 0, so that we have concluded that swapping of O with C2 is not a good idea. This is about K-Medoids algorithm. I think you guys understood. If you guys not understood, then please comment it down. Then I'll make a special video about K-Medoids by taking another problem as example. Understood? That's all for today's video. In the next video, we are going to discuss about hierarchical clustering. If you guys like this video, please like, share, comment and subscribe to StudyByte. Thank you for watching till the end. See you in the next video.